Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and this afternoon I'm delighted to be joined by Chris McElwain to talk all about Celtic 3, St Mirren 0. You look at the top of the table, Chris, before we go any further, and Celtic are sitting pretty with 13 points between us and second placed Rangers. Obviously, all week we have been discussing last week's disappointing result, but it just shows you how football is. You've got to, I mean, a championship winning mentality is different from winning the game or winning the odd game here or there. And I think that it showed that the day when you look at the results today.
It does, and I'll try and keep the banter at a minimum. But I mean, Rangers been back more times than Schwarzenegger at this point. And the inevitable thing about when you turn corners that many times, you inevitably end up back where you started, which seems to have been what's happened. But no, it's like I say, the season's over the course of 38 plus games. And in addition to all the other matches you've got, and I think the measure of your success really comes at the end of the season when you tally up, what you've won and what's in the trophy cabinet. And at the moment, I think on that basis, we were very much heading for the for the league title. But we take nothing for granted. We go one game at a time, and I'm sure we'll have more FA performances before the end of the season. But I think today, to focus on today's game, it was the best way I can describe it was job done. We came, we did what we needed to do. It wasn't always pretty, wasn't always smooth sailing, but we looked well on top. A couple of really good performances today, which was great to see. And I think it's just about rebuilding that momentum and going on for the rest of the season. But yeah, good performance. Decent job, good 3 points, and yeah, great gap at the top again.
Brilliant gap, yeah, absolutely. And I think what we do today is we look at the team performance getting back into our stride, and we also look at some of the individual performances, because of course when we looked at that start 11, Chris, there were a few changes from the Rangers game. Inevitably that was going to happen, and we'll look at those coming into the side. Absolutely aware of that. There was some issue. Loopy 33 points out. Celtic TV was down for a spell. I believe it was a power outage in the area rather than an issue just within Celtic Park, streetlights, etc. So unfortunately for the worldwide fan base who tunes in, and for those who paid for PPV, they didn't see all of the action. Now, I'm going to bring this one in first because, we win the game 3-0. Kuhn gets 2 goals and Trusty scores his first goal for the club. So we'll be talking about those two players without a doubt. But Tony C brings this up. We need another striker. We're in, of course, the January transfer window. Great from Kuhn once again. The goals have been divvied up, Chris. I think we could safely say, when you're looking at the goals scored by Idah this season and Kuhn, yes, and even Callum McGregor, give him an informed striker to feed and we are flying. It's as big an issue as the left-hand side of the fence. The left-hand side, actually, when you look at the first goal, it came down that left-hand side. We were talking about that being weaker as a unit than the right-hand side. There's another talking point that we'll get delving into. But let's start off with Adam Idah then, because he was reintroduced to the start 11, Chris. I felt that it was an up and down kind of game for him. There were a lot of crosses into the box. This is the thing, talk about service. There were plenty of crosses into the box for me, Tony. And I think Idah has to get on the end of them. What he did right, I believe, his work rate was brilliant. Even that lung-busting run at the end when he knew he was coming off, yes, right down the right wing, his work rate was outstanding. His defensive play was very good. There were 3 or 4 occasions, 1 header and 3 times where he's actually come back, where he's come back into a situation where St Mirren are on the offensive and Idah is the guy that's won the ball. So it wasn't all that bad. I think that if we're going to be playing Idah up top and we're flighting loads of crosses into the box, he needs to get on the end of them. And also, right, one of the parts of his game last season that I really admired was his holding up play. I wish he would stop the flicks. He done it when he came on against Rangers, where the ball comes to him. It'll make it stick to you, because if you're seeing the ball, listen, it came off once against Hibs, I think, when him and Kyogo were both on the park. It didn't happen against Rangers. It didn't happen today. You've got to be careful with that ball. You've got to be tidy with the ball. So overall, I don't think Idah has done anything to dislodge Kyogo on that performance, Chris. What do you reckon?
I agree with you. I thought his biggest, probably his most successful aspect of his play today was his movement. I thought he should pretty good work ethic, good movement. He was trying to link up the play. I think sharpness and the overall energy level, I think, is still lacking a little bit for me, and I don't know whether that's just minutes or still trying to build up his fitness. It was quite interesting. I can't remember if it was Kev said it the other day. If he was looking at a player like Idah, because of his physique, because of the way he plays, he potentially is the type of player that takes longer to build up his fitness. And we know he didn't have a pre-season. And I thought at times today, you could see the sharpness starting to come back. I thought that run he did at the end where he was taken down by Fraser, I think it was. I think if that foul doesn't happen, I see him charging right into the box and potentially scoring. I thought he was a wee bit unlucky with the offside goal. I know he crashed it off the bar initially, but the run was good, and the shot, and fortunate bounce to go back in, but unlucky to for that to be offside. But it was I thought he kind of grew into the game, which was good. Like I say, I think he's just a different player to Kyogo. But I think the thing that unites the two players is that we are struggling to find the right type of service to give to the players. Now, I'm not going to go down the route of saying they weren't getting enough service today. I actually felt, as you said, I thought there was enough crosses going in. I thought there was enough balls being played in. But I just don't know if we're necessarily finding the right type of balls to go into the players. Or is it a case that both players need to be putting themselves in the right position, busting a gut to try and get on the end of these? Because I know that the last commenter there said we need another striker. But I'm starting to wonder, if you put another striker in there, are they going to be any more effective than the two we've got? I'm not sure. I think there's just something about the way we play where we're not working well enough with the striker that we've got, and I think that was the same with Idah. So I think there's a combination of responsibility. I think our strikers need to do more to impose themselves onto the game, and I think we have to start finding the right type of service to go to them. But today was probably the first day where I'd say it wasn't a case of them not getting any service. I just think, we have to find ways to play to these players' strengths.
Well, all season I've been saying we needed a third striker. I always think you do. I always think, with regards to options, particularly when you look at the January fixture list, Chris, and it's game after game, and it's including 2 Champions League games. All it takes is one injury, one suspension, etc. So I always do think you run with 3. However, when I'm looking across the Celtic side, it wouldn't be my priority purchase. It would not be my priority at this point. No. I think, the 2 wingers came on today, Yang and Palmer, for example. And, there was a moment where Yang, again, this is turning into Yang's kind of little motto. He looked lively. He got the ball, went on a wee mazy. I'm still not seeing the end product from Yang. I think he could maybe benefit from a Kuhn-like loan. Maybe to a fellow Premiership club. And I know that divides opinion. There's some within the Acsom team who don't like that. I think it's a good thing, Scales-esque. You look at what happened to Ryan Christie, Chris Aya, that this type of player who goes out into the Premiership and acclimatises and gets plenty of game time, then comes back a stronger contributor to the Celtic side. Palmer, I think we will see a reveal video somewhere in the world with Palmer moving on in January. So I do think we need strengthened in the wings. The wing area today wasn't really a concern. You've seen Kuhn from the first kick of the ball. Kuhn was in the mood, right?
It was.
There's a steeliness about him, Chris. Where like he's walking about there with that wee scar on his nose because he took a sore one against Rangers.
He did.
He was poor. The thing I'm talking about the Rangers game. Moments in that game. And you think to yourself, yeah, it's just margins. It really is just marginal. So you mentioned Kyogo earlier. Now, I've seen the footage like everybody else, the offside footage. I still think the lines are dreadful. I still think
they are.
The camera.
No way it was as clear cut as that. No way.
Well, this is the thing. The thing is, Chris, we don't have a great system. When you're playing in the Champions League, and if you're a toenail offside, it actually shows you. It's not as it leaves nothing to question. So Kyogo was that tight from bringing Celtic back into that game. Engels, who bossed it today. Engels, who was the man of the match the other week, didn't start because he was ill. Kuhn, who takes a stamp in the first minute of the game and an arm to the face in the last minute of the first half. seems to be a wee bit kind of dismayed by all that and doesn't get into the game, or star man. So all these wee moments in the game can add up to us just not getting a foothold in the game. Then you've got the individual errors, the error of Scales giving the ball away, the error of McCowan giving the ball away for the third goal, and even the second goal, leading to the corner kick, Idah gives the ball away. So you're looking at all that, and we were very angry and emotional after it. But then you look at today's performances and Kuhn, right back to the Kuhn that we've seen all season. So I thought to myself, let's spend a wee bit of time on Kuhn. Let's be positive today after a few days of concern. Kuhn plays 71 minutes today. He goes off having scored a couple of goals, right? It's his 27th appearance of the season. And in those 27 appearances, he has scored 16 and he has created 11. 27 goals and assists in 27 games from a winger. Outstanding, Chris. Absolutely tremendous. You look at the minutes that he's played, 1,875. He is scoring or creating a goal every 69 minutes.
Yeah.
What a season he's having. And listen, we were disappointed on Thursday by just about everybody, but what a season Nicholas Kuhn's having.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I remember some of the best players. I think Thierry Henry was the one that always comes to mind. That used to, I can't remember the players. It was Roy Keane or one of the other famous players. So careful who I attribute it to. But had said that if you lay one on Thierry Henry early in a game, you take him out of the game. He goes. And so it's definitely something that can happen to the best of players. But Kuhn, I think, over the piece has been tremendous. I'll have to say I loved his first goal today. We didn't talk about it at half-time, but I loved his first goal today because I loved the position he took up from Idah, where he's running through. He was actually running through. He wears number 10, but he was actually running through that number 10 position to score the goal. And I loved the fact that he came inside and done that. I would like to see more of that. And then, you talk about his second goal there. Okay, bit of a faff in the St Mirren box, but what brilliant composure just to shift it on his other foot and knock it in. No panic, no hacking at it, just coolness personified, which is, his mannerisms and the way he plays.
He's ice cold, isn't he?
He's ice cold,
Yep.
So I really liked it. I thought it was good. I thought, a lot of the build-up play, the wingers were far more involved today, which was great. It was nice to see, and I think when they do try and impose themselves onto the match, you get opportunities. And I was actually about to moan about Kuhn before he scored the second goal because it was a brilliant move from Casper. I think it was to Engels who did the run. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant run, and the pace that Engels showed, something I haven't seen before. It was excellent. Plays a brilliant ball to Kuhn, who again is busting a gut to get up there. And I was annoyed that Kuhn didn't make more of the chance because it'd be a brilliant team goal. Just show that transition from back to front. It was amazing.
Which we mentioned before the game. The Casper. Effect.
That is us at our best. There, finish aside. But he's a player that will make things happen. We have to find the way to allow him to impose himself on the game, and I think that's where the midfield really becomes important. And I think you mentioned Engels there. Engels played excellent today. I think it could be a toss up between him and Kuhn as to who was the man of the match today. But I thought that was a coming of age performance from Engels today. I felt. Now, I don't think St Mirren were on their best. Again, we were on the front foot, which is usually when we play our best. But I thought Engels took his opportunity today and really ran the game. It took a ton of pressure off Callum McGregor as well, which was great to see. I felt as though McGregor kind of strolled that game without being outstanding. But I think a lot of that was down to the way Kuhn played, and it was excellent to see. So, yeah, two players that played well today. Let's see them kick on now, and for Kuhn to continue and for Engels to go on and build on that performance.
Also, though, if you're going to say it's a flip of a coin between Kuhn and Engels, get off the fence, mate. Get these splinters out your backside and give me the man of the match. Who is it? If it's between the two of them, which one is it?
Idah. No, I would say just by virtue of how well he took his two goals, I would probably say Kuhn. I think just on the eye test, he's becoming a bit of a talismanic figure, and we're depending on him. So I'd say Kuhn just edged it, and I think it was largely down to that icy composure for the second goal was tremendous. But I would also say that domestically, that's probably the best performance I've seen from Engels. I thought it was outstanding. So.
Yeah, I want to talk a wee bit about Arne Engels as well. We were talking about obviously predictions, etc. What I was doing match day. What was my big predictions this season? Aberdeen would come second. Well, the wheels have came off that one. The bogey is in free fall. The other one was that Nicholas Kuhn would become a world beater, and that was before we played Chelsea and Man City. By the way, it wasn't like I was jumping on. I made that prediction before we played Ayr United, and he was murdered against Ayr United in Queen's Park, and then I'm thinking, listen, I'm going to die on a hill with this one, right? Nicholas Kuhn would be a world beater, and of course, Arne Engels would score directly from a corner, and he forced the goalie. Yes, he forced the goalie into a save. I'm going to give the man of the match to Arne Engels. I think that it was over the piece. Obviously, it completed the game. Kuhn was fantastic. He was absolutely brilliant, right? But I think what allowed the wingers to play twofold. What you've got is you've got a goalkeeper who can actually quickly transition the game, and he did that. That was the best example of it was just before the goal that you mentioned there, where I looked at it and I thought to myself, what a move. That was just before the third goal. I think it was maybe McCowan. I could be wrong that Schmeichel played it to, but then it eventually comes to Kuhn. You're thinking it's broken down. Arne Engels back heels it. It goes through the goalie and two St Mirren defenders, and then Kuhn puts it in. Not sure Engels gets the assist for that because I think a St Mirren player touched that. I don't know. I'm going to give him the assist anyway for the purpose of my next part where I'm talking about Engels and what he's done this season. But I'm going to go for Engels. And I think that what happens is every transfer window now, I think the first transfer window is all but written off. I mean, we spoke for months about it, didn't we? About the players that came in Brendan's first transfer window, and we were thinking, right, are we going to be able to salvage anything from this group of players? And we're talking about Nawrocki, Lagerbielke, Yang, Palmer, Kwon, Odin Holm, Nat Phillips, all these guys that came in, and you're thinking, can we salvage anything from that batch of players? And then something obviously changed. We know that Mark Lowell leaves his position at the football club. It's changed even since then with Paul Tisdale coming in. But if you look at the transfer window since then, so you're looking at the January where Kuhn and Idah comes in, Idah on loan. Kuhn's written off, Idah's the hero. And then how that flips onto this season where Kuhn's the hero and Idah is being questioned. I'm going to bring a few of those comments up on the screen. And then the summer transfer where you're looking at bringing in guys like Trusty, McCowan, and Engels, big money players. Sinny Salo, obviously backup goalie. And I just think every transfer window now, and we're in Brendan's fourth transfer window since he came back, if you are able to trim the squad further by getting rid of non-contributing players and bring in hopefully three who then make that contribution and improve the level, because people are going on about, listen, we spent 26 million quid and they're all on the bench. Well, they weren't on the bench today. The 26 million pounds of players, worth of players, were on the field. I also heard someone saying, and I couldn't argue it, about, listen, we didn't buy Engels to play against Ross County. Well, yeah, we did. Because today's your bread and butter. Yes. Today's your bread and butter, Chris. You know, you've got to go out there today against St Mirren and get your 3 points. And if Arne Engels is the man of the match, that's what we brought him here for. Yeah, you want to see him performing well in the Champions League. I think he has done across the board. You want to see him performing well against Rangers. He'll have big moments. Arne Engels will have big moments against Rangers this season. In the remaining two, I thought he had a big moment in the League Cup final because he set up Kuhn's goal. Comes on as a sub and he set up Kuhn's goal. So I've got no concerns about him. Idah, I think there's definitely concerns in amongst quite a few people in the comment section, and we've already spoken about his performance. But let's look at Engels. So today was his 26th appearance for Celtic since he came to the football club. He has scored 5 goals. Are we giving him the back heel as an assist? I am. And he's got 10 assists then. That's frightening, right? So 15 all in. He's played 1,618 minutes, which means that he is creating or scoring a goal every 107 minutes.
Not bad. It's not bad.
So when you compare it to O'Reilly's last season, 115 minutes, he has been more in terms of contributing goals and assists, prolific than Matt. I'm not saying he's been better. I'm just saying, sometimes he's been getting a bit of stick this season. I thought he was very mature. He draws fouls. He continually draws fouls, which wins you possession more often than not. And obviously, we've not spoken about this. This comes on the back. We signed him as a 20-year-old. He's only 21. He goes into that cauldron of Ibrox, which is exclusively full of Rangers fans. He gets hit with a coin. And it's all these wee things you think, Chris, it's just test. He's been tested. He's been tested coming to Celtic.
Yeah.
Maybe never faced that before. And he comes out today and he's very mature and he controls the game. And he quickly, like the Casper, this is where my point started, and I'm going to bring it back to the point. Casper hitting the wings quickly. That's what McKeown was doing, and that's what Engels was doing, and often switching the play as well. And it was huge. You noticed the difference. We had so much more space as a result of that. Is Engels a first pick now?
Yes, for me. Yeah, but I think the one condition I would put on that is play him in his preferred role, which I think is deeper. I think he played deeper today, and he linked the play. I know he played kind of right hand side again, where he does have that link up, but he definitely started moves from deep, and I like that. So I would say that's the condition. If we can play him there and utilise him to his strengths, I think he's a no-brainer. He's a starter for me at the moment. I have to say, I think McKeown did himself no harm. His chances no harm today as well. Not everything came off. He was probably slightly less influential than Engels today, but he didn't disgrace himself at all. I think he's one that is dependable. So I think all the players that come in today have done their chances no harm whatsoever. Engels, I think, is probably now a first pick, possibly at the expense of Hatate. I'm not 100% sure. I felt as though Bernardo was maybe a little bit harshly treated after the Rangers game, because one mistake, but actually the best performer of the three. So maybe Kalmak, Engels, Bernardo is the option going forward. Might be taken out of the manager's hands, because it looked as though Rio pulled up with a bit of a hamstring injury towards the end there. So we might be forced to mix it up a little bit. But yeah, Engels for me is a no-brainer. He's a starter.
Yeah, well, it's about, for me, the midfield's about finding the right blend and making sure that whoever you're picking is in their strongest position. And there's obviously a discussion to be had about where's best to play Callum McGregor as well. So that's something that we'll be tapping into. ASM1 comes in to say, well, job done. He's seen his old fella off who passed away on Friday morning at the age of 91 and a half. Absolutely. And much better. Obviously, Celtic can take your mind off these things as well. So thoughts and prayers with you and your family, and hopefully you enjoyed that today. Stephen Broadley thought this would have been a tricky game for us. Glad to get the 3 points and a half decent performance. Stephen Robinson teams are hard to play against. He showed that when he was at Motherwell.
One of the best managers in the league, I think. I've always been quite a fan of him.
He's a solid. Yeah.
Solid
manager. I actually thought, and I said this during the season, because what was my prediction last season was that Rangers, Hibs, Hearts and Aberdeen would all change their manager. And the only one I was wrong about was Hearts, because that happened at the beginning of this campaign. But they all did during that campaign change their managers. And I remember when Hearts eventually did part ways with Naismith, and I thought
you thought Robinson.
Robinson's he's a Hearts manager all day long. He's a Hearts manager. He would really turn it around for him. But anyway, who cares? A few positives to take from the game. And change of personnel. Sean Fairley, it's a solid performance, 3 points, all important. Is Hatate only a sub now? Well, he is for me, Sean. And I know that we're talking about a blend. We're talking about, and often it's horses for courses. There's certain games. If you're going away to Dortmund or away to Atlanta, it's going to be a different way that you play, in my view, than home to St Mirren. So there's going to be games where he is the best option, but I think that in terms of form, he's not in the starting 11 for me.
I was going to say, I would agree. I think it's based on form. As I say, I'm a huge fan of Hatate. I've always liked him. I like the maverick element of how he plays, but I felt more often than not this season, it's just not quite worked out for him. I don't know what the reason for that is. I wouldn't necessarily put it down. I don't think the players change of attitude or anything like that. I just think he's the good stuff that was coming off, in prior seasons has not really come off often enough this season. And so therefore for me, I think if you're basing it purely on form, I'll bring someone like Engels in instead for the moment. That's not to say that I don't think Hatate's got an important part to play. I also don't think it means that Hatate won't find his way back into the team. I think he's too good a player for But I think now the manager's going to be more selective about who his kind of first choice midfield is going to be. Hatate, for me, could very well become more of an impact player this season. But listen, that could change after one or two performances, so it's a difficult one to predict. But right at this moment in time, Engels goes straight into midfield for me, and I would say probably at the expense of Hatate.
Moses Lack agrees with you. Engels goes straight in. Thomas and McBrearty, Hibs. I think what he's saying is that Rangers Hibs it today at Easter Road. Joseph McGonigal at 4 days and it's back to -13, and Govan flash in the pan. FC, it takes a different type of mentality to be a winner over the entire campaign, Chris. I think that's what we're getting at. We're frustrated after a defeat. You're asking yourself, how on earth can this team beat us? People are telling us they're not as bad as you think you are, you're not as good as you think you are, etc., etc. I think it comes down to one bad day at the office and them actually shaping up really well against Celtic. They did. There's no denying it, Chris. When I watched it back, I thought to myself, they didn't give us a minute's peace.
No.
I actually saw moments today where I thought St Mirren were trying to replicate that, but we dealt with it far better. Maybe their players just aren't as good. They're just maybe not as high a standard of player.
I mean, the measure of champion sometimes is how you react to those periods of adversity, and how do you arrest something that could have become a slump. I mean, one of our concerns was, is there? We always talk about this turning point. Could that have been, us going into a mini slump of sorts? But actually, you look at what we've achieved throughout this season. Even when we've not performed well, we've ground out results, and we've had some cracking performances, and we're doing it in Europe. So, for me, I think this just confirms and validates the fact that, look, it was an off day. It was an off day. You can have them. And I think today we needed a reaction, and I think we got it. I think we got the right reaction. It didn't have to be spectacular. It didn't have to be an 8-0 or 9-0, although I'd have quite liked it if it was. But what we did is we went out there and we did the job. And I thought that was great. So yeah, it was a good professional performance. But I think what it did highlight is the fact that we're geared up to win this league. Rangers, for all the credit, and we did, look, I'll be honest, we gave them credit for the way they played against us. We can't just say it was all down to our performance, but I think on today's evidence, it shows that they're not at that level of winning the championship. You hope, as a Celtic fan, you hope. And we've definitely got it within us to go and see this one over the line. But listen, we've got to take it one game at a time. Sorry to sound like Brendan there, but we've got to take it one game at a time. We have to keep the levels as high and as consistent as possible going forward, because, as we say, one off day, you lose 3 points. It can happen, and it can happen to the best of teams.
It can. I do think that they're miles off being a league-winning club. I think Celtic, over a space of a campaign, will show that, have shown it, and will continue to show it. Barry O'Sullivan, JP, we need to get some Acsom t-shirts with Mind the Gap on them. Sorry, PJ. Barry, it's interchangeable. I don't mind. PJ, JP, I get called a hell of a lot worse. But in relation to merchandise, we do have a whole host of that on the Acsom.net site. We don't ask anyone to pay for content, but obviously things like merchandise or live events, you can come along and support the channel in different ways. And over the last 1 year, I have been working on a whole new range that I'm hoping to have launched for St. Patrick's Day this year as well. Chris has had a sneak preview into some of the garments. It's more of a fashion brand than merchandise. So looking forward to revealing all that and doing promo videos and the full hog as Acsom moves into 2025 with big plans. Andy Logan, Hatate giving away the ball again under no pressure. I know one of the passes almost went out the park. It's bizarre for a player of that quality. Ridiculizer. That must be so deflating for them. Maybe take the wind right out of their sails. Chris talked about how winners come back from adversity. And I think also today, it shows you also how someone who has gone out there and got a great result on Thursday has to make sure it happens. The consistency, the discipline, turning up, never just phoning it in, Chris. Turning up every single day is the real mark of a champion. CJ just finished work, saw nothing. Who played well as a unit? CJ, in a nutshell, I think it was a pretty dominant performance. We played pretty well. There was a couple of wee stages of the game, 5-10 minutes where Mirren came at us, but they weren't really a threat. I think the one time Casper was called into action was probably after the 90th minute in the injury time, and it was again an individual error by Cat Vickers. Great goals. Watch the goals back, and the guys that came in: Idah, Trusty, Engels, McCowan. I think largely they did pretty well. We've spoken about Idah, but I think McCowan and Engels were the stars of those four. But Trusty as well gets his first goal for a football club. And you're just thinking to yourself, does that mean Trusty's a first pick now? We shall see. Mark Riley. Mark Riley was the man who managed to find and give me this Acsom.
Oh, look at that.
Look at that. Beauty.
Nice.
Took me back to Hagar the Horrible. Remember the Skull advert?
Yes.
Remember?
The old comic strip. Can
you remember the lyrics to the song? No?
Don't think so. Can I claim I'm too young?
It was just Skull, repeat till fade.
Skull.
You could never ever forget them. Slow and steady over the season, boys. Games like today are the ones which could trip us up. Yep. So glad to get. What you imagine coming away today with a draw? I mean, that was a confident 3-0 win.
Yeah, and we were under pressure as well. You got to remember that with Rangers playing first. You know, if they'd got the win, then you're immediately under pressure. But ultimately, we go out there and we just do our business. We look after ourselves at the moment. We were 11 points ahead before the game. We're now, we're 13 points clear. We've just got to look after ourselves now. Forget them. We'll worry about them when we come to play them. At the moment, it's just what we are doing game to game.
See the thing, right? When I look at the Premiership, and I'm going to have a wee look at the scores today, I look at that and I think, right, one thing that Brendan Rodgers mentioned, which I found quite interesting, because Kevin Graham brought it up the other day as well, is when you've got that cushion, then there can be an air of complacency. It's human nature. There's an air of complacency where it's like, I've got this. It's easy peasy. I'm going to win it. And Brendan Rodgers mentioned that, which I found quite interesting. And I found it interesting because some people have started getting into the habit of saying that footballers don't do that. Footballers don't shirk a tackle. Footballers don't bottle it. Yeah, they do, because footballers are human, right? So, this is the one thing I'm pretty sure at some point, Brendan Rodgers, I wouldn't be surprised if he does mention the bottled it comment made by Kevin Graham, by the way. Didn't want to throw you under the bus, Kev. At some point between now and then.
But it wasn't us.
But it wasn't us. I'm not taking it. I'm not having that. No chance. But the bottled it comment, I've seen players bottling it in big occasions since I started going to watch it. It happens. It absolutely happens, Chris.
Do you know what? I'm going to defend Kev here, because see, as supporters, and particularly being a Celtic fan, you watch your players on the park. Your expectation level is above anything else. You want to see them putting in, what looks like the maximum amount of effort. And look, we've given credit to Rangers for the way they played and they nullified some of some of our top players. You recognise that things just weren't going well, and there was a lot of things that just weren't going well for us in that game. And I think players, as you say, they're human. It takes a particularly strong mentality just to go out and play in that cauldron in that crowd, right? So I don't think what Kev was saying, he wasn't questioning the character of the players, I don't think. But I think what he was saying is on the day, and Kev will be the first one to come and correct me if I've got this wrong, but the way I interpreted Kev's comment was that he's saying on the day, the reaction for the players maybe wasn't good enough, and probably not good enough in their own minds. They just didn't react to what was going on around them as well as the opposition. And I think that's fair. I mean, it's too simple to say they bottled it. I would never question any Celtic player's character like that based on one match. But I do understand that it must be so mentally draining when nothing's going right for you in a game. No matter how good you are, no matter how much better we think we are than the opposition, you can just have a bad day. It can happen.
It can happen. And the reason I brought up that comment by Brendan Rodgers was because we now find ourselves with a cushion. Again, we're only 1 point worse off. And it's about saying, what happened that day, let's make sure it doesn't happen again. Sean Fairley was hoping Idah would be better, but he was pretty anonymous, says Sean. And Mo asks questions around the £9 million signing. I'm going to say right now, as I'm sitting here, I know he's not had a fantastic season. And I've said it before, I'm going to stick with it. Adam Idah will have big moments this season for Celtic, right? And the big moment might come against Young Boys or Aston Villa. He is going to have moments where we're sitting here after the game going, you know what, he's just paid back that £9 million, because that's where he can pay back that kind of fee and with one goal and progressing into Champions League.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I do think that, we've maybe been a bit hard on him, but he set a standard himself last season. Let's not forget, nobody scored more goals than Adam Idah in 2024 for Celtic. If you look at the calendar year, he set his own standard. He's maybe not quite lived up to it yet. I'm not writing him off. Absolutely not writing him off. Listen, thanks everybody for getting involved. It's been an absolute pleasure. As always, we're back on track. Celtic sitting pretty on the top of the league again. And we'll be back again tomorrow at 12:30. Big John Hartson's coming to join us at Gracie's at the end of the month. I've just had another one confirmed for February, which I'll put out in the socials later on tonight. If you want to come along, tickets, as always, underneath the video. All that's left for me to say is thank you, 1,900 strong, for tuning in to a Celtic State of Mind. And thank you to Chris McElwain for joining me on Acsom.
It's a pleasure.